You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, Broncos country. What is going on, everybody? Aniello, Piro, Cody, Roark. This is your Locked On Broncos POSTCAST. Of course, Cody is the standard host of the Locked On Broncos podcast, along with our guy, Sarah Bettinger. But of course, this is your Locked On Broncos POSTCAST. Aniello, Piro, alongside with my running mate, Cody Roark, here this evening as the Denver Broncos taking care of business against the San Francisco 49ers. 30-9, your final score. Plenty to talk about on today's Locked On Broncos postcast with my man, Cody Roark. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by our friends by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Roark, I've seen you at training camp, but nice to see you virtually here, and a good effort tonight from the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, I think when you talk about this game, the minutia of it, everyone's going to be talking about, okay, the slow start that the Broncos starters had to this game. Look, defensively, offensively, and certainly it's something that Sean Payton has acknowledged as it was disappointing. We didn't want to open up that way, but it's why you play in the preseason, because I always ask people the question. I think there's a lot of value in the preseason, contrary to what people say or don't say. Some people say it's real football or it's not real football. I think it is real football. It matters. A lot of the details matter. But wouldn't you rather the Broncos have some of this rust here in the preseason, get off to a little bit of that slow start, and that way you can go through and identify things before the regular season comes around? Because I remember last year, the Broncos offense in the preseason, they got off to a pretty hot start, but they opened up the regular season with a very sluggish start, and they had those struggles all the way up until week 4. So, I think there's a lot of things you could take away from this game on film. That certainly the offense and the defense themselves, they're going to want to come back and maybe go back. Like they want to redo essentially of this game. You don't get that, but you get another opportunity this upcoming week against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I have been at just about every single training camp practice for the Denver Broncos, right? And this was their first opportunity outside of the joint practice that happened earlier this week against San Francisco for them to kind of go out there and get their feet wet. And that's exactly what it looked like for me with the first team offense and the first team defense, is a Broncos team that has a lot of talent, but kind of need to get back into that football mindset, that football groove. Look, Bo Nix, I thought was fine. There was a couple passes that you want to see, the one to Cortland Sutton over the shoulder. You would have liked to see him bring that in. A couple other passes from Bo Nix, you would have liked to see them connect. But this is, to your point, where you want to get these reps in, where you want to, I don't want to say make mistakes, but, build momentum, build chemistry, build camaraderie. So when you get to that regular season, you're ready to go. There was nothing to me, despite, some of the off-put play from Bo Nix in the offense and some bad plays from the defense at times, nothing from me taking away from this game that has me worried about the Denver Broncos starters.
No, not in any way, shape, or form. Look, and I'll highlight this. You made a great point. On that first offensive series that the Broncos had, I thought that throw that he had to Cortland Sutton was beautiful. Sutton couldn't haul it in going down. All right, you move on to the next series. You want a more productive offensive output. That's fine. I mean, you don't get it in that one, fine. You get your second series, you want to look a little bit better there. He had that underthrown pass to Troy Franklin across the middle. In the regular season, that's just got to be one of those throws you can't make because safeties will break on that quicker than anything when we talk about starters there. And then there was the one obviously on third down on the left sideline to Cortland Sutton. That was a little underthrown as well. I think right now Bo is still just trying to play around a little bit and see what he can and can't do. And look, he obviously worked this offseason on some mechanics. I think he's trying some new things, though. You don't want to get too crazy. I didn't think Bo did a bad job of operating the offense here. The quick passing game was there. We got to see RJ Harvey in the run game going a little bit. That was a nice positive coming out of this. You got to see Bo find Troy Franklin that fourth down and Troy's rise that he's had. That's a story coming out of this game. But, a lot of people are talking about the safety here, and a lot of people are reacting. You go back and you watch the play. All right, you look at the right side there. That's where Bo is sliding the protection to because they're overloaded on that right side. So you want to protect right. That Robert Saleh, that dude is diabolical. He's dialing up 5-6 man, rush blitzes in the preseason. I'm with it. I would do the same thing as a DC, but the nickel comes free, and Bo has to spin out and just try to chuck it. People are like, "Oh, stand in the pocket." Do you want Bo to stand there and get killed by a free rushing nickel blitzer in the preseason? No. I'd rather him just take this. I'd rather the safety happen than Bo getting blown up on a play. And then all of a sudden you have to worry about a potential injury. Was it perfect? Was it clean by the offense? No, it was rusty, a lot to be desired, but it's the preseason. You have joint practices this week against not against San Francisco, against the Arizona Cardinals. Then you have a game at home. That's what it's all about. Can the Broncos have a better showing here in week 2 of the preseason? That's what it's about. Can you measure where you're at week 1 of the preseason? And can you improve upon those things going into week 2? That is the nature of the game.
Yeah, I think part of some of the overreaction that we're seeing out there is less about it being preseason, is more so about that it was the Broncos 1s against San Francisco's 2s. And I'll read into that, maybe a little bit. There's this much of me that's like, okay, like that's of note. They didn't play overly well against the 1s, right? But to your point on Bo Nix and the offense and even the defense as a whole, it looked like a team that is getting used to, game experience again. I mean, you and I sitting on the sidelines at training camp, like we've watched the same receiver drills over and over. We watched Bo Nix throw into a net over and over, right? Like this was their first time to really get out there and get back into that game speed type of thing. And we can talk more about this after the commercial break as well. But it's funny that some people want to go doom and gloom. Cody, they had 30 unanswered points in this game. 30.
Yeah,
they dominated the game.
It was nice to see them bounce back that way. And obviously, Jarrett Stidham had a really great night operating the second team offense there, 14 of 15 passing. His connection with Trent Sherfield, that was a fun thing to kind of see play out. A nice touchdown right before halftime there. And obviously, Denver's defense. I mean, you had 4 key forced takeaways at that point. If you want to count turnover on downs, the Broncos had several other forced turnovers, in that regard there. I thought the defense played well for the most part. But, you want to see these other guys get in the mix. And really the story with the offense outside of Stidham's performance is all eyes on the running back competition, which I know we're going to highlight a little bit more here. But you got to see different guys get carries. We touched on RJ Harvey getting his first looks. J.K. Dobbins had 1 catch for 4 yards. And then you had Jaleel McLaughlin getting the next set of touches there. Had 1 really nice run called back due to a holding penalty, unfortunately. And then really Blake Watson was kind of the story of the night. I'm not worried about this. This is the preseason. And one thing I'll say, Sarah, is I did not miss the overreaction when it comes to the preseason. That's one thing football season brings, is a lot of crazy overreaction. Look, you don't want to get too high. You don't want to get too low. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of great stuff on film that you can go back and correct and obviously sharpen going forward. That's what this is about. And I love that we got a little bit more of an extensive look at the Broncos' younger guys, some guys that could be fighting for backup spots or even guys fighting for practice squad spots, because this is a deep young roster. And, man, there was a lot of guys that made some plays here tonight.
For sure. Sean Payton currently at the podium. I'm curious to see what he has to say after the game. I did see some comments from him going into halftime that he was a little bit disappointed about the start for the offense and for the defense. But again, as Cody and I have talked about here on your Locked On Broncos postcast, I think that's to be expected just a little bit with this Denver Broncos team. And of course, to Cody's point, it is the preseason. Some people think Shedeur Sanders is the second coming after what he did last night for Cleveland in their preseason game. So let's pump the brakes. I think there was a lot of good to take away from this game tonight. To your point about the depth, different players, but it was also nice just to see J.K. Dobbins, RJ Harvey, Evan Engram. First opportunity to see these guys in that orange and blue for the Broncos, Cody.
Yeah, and look, for RJ, you see the quick cuts, the explosiveness there. We didn't get to see JK touch the ball in terms of running it for the Broncos, which, maybe we'll see that in Arizona, when you have this home game, this upcoming week here. But I also like that we got to see a lot of Troy Franklin. We got to see Pat Bryant making plays here. I mean, you got a whole bunch of guys getting involved. Trent Sherfield, as we mentioned, led all receivers, obviously with over 70 yards on 3 catches. That connection between he and Stidham was cooking up a little bit. And maybe you want to see a little bit more from the tight end room. I mean, I know Lucas Kroll had a wide open touchdown. No one was even near him at that point. He was the most productive guy at that position on the night. But just young guys getting in the mix here. And you want to see growth. You want to see guys taking steps forward. And I think one thing that can stand out to me is a little concerning here was the penalties. Over 8 penalties for something. 11 penalties for 87 yards here for the Broncos. That's an area that hurt them last year. They're going to have to sharpen up on that and obviously get it going. But this is the first game of the 2025 campaign. Granted, it's the preseason, but it's the first in terms of the overall body of work of this team. And come 3 weeks time from now, this team is going to look very different. That roster is going to be set, and then your room for error kind of shrinks going forward.
Yeah, getting the feet wet. That's what the Denver Broncos did here tonight, but it is a 30-9 victory in the first preseason game of the season for the Denver Broncos. All right, let's hit a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue along with the conversation. What did we learn? Jared Stidham looked pretty good. I thought, there was a couple players in that second half that looked pretty good as well. Cody and I will dive into that when we come back right here on your Locked On Broncos postcast. I'm going to kick you out for a second. I'll bring you right back in, my man. Here we go. Let me tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money here real quick, because most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Be sure to check out our friends over at Monarch Money and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. And let me also tell you real quick about our friends over at Yahoo Fantasy, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is presented to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like you've never seen before. This year, my buddies are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. There's a bazillion reasons to enjoy Yahoo Fantasy. If you're just looking to switch it up a little bit or get involved with one of the longest standing fantasy football platforms in the game, Yahoo Fantasy is the place for you. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy's Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're into more classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league as well. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Do it. Check out our friends over at Yahoo Fantasy and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. All right, Locked On Broncos postcast, Aniello Piro, along with my guy, Cody Roark. Don't worry, it's the postcast. Sarah and Cody got you covered on your standard Locked On Broncos podcast as well. So I know it's my first time, I believe, on the channel. I think we've done some stuff previously, but I believe we're moving the postcast over to the main feed, so we'll have some additional content for Broncos Country here as well, Cody.
Yeah, you'll still get your post-game podcast from Sarah and I after the show, Broncos Country. You just get a little bit of extra of me, and you get a little bit of diciness here from Aniello Piro. So yeah, excited to bring it.
I try to keep it a bucket of stack with you, but you and I go back for the listeners as well. I mean, we've known each other for 5, 6, 7 years now. We've done shows together, so excited to kind of bring it all together here on the Locked On platform. But yeah, it was a 30-9 throttling for the Denver Broncos. Look, I don't know about you, Cody. They could have lost this game 30-9, and I'm not sure I would feel very different. To me, this is about, like I've said a couple of times, get the feet wet, get some looks at some new players, and most importantly, health is wealth, and the Denver Broncos doing pretty good on that department here tonight as well.
Yeah, they came out of tonight's game healthy, which is something you want to see. Now, granted, they got a little banged up in the joint practice against the 49ers, as Sean Payton has confirmed to us that Matt Henningsen, defensive lineman, has torn his Achilles. He'll have surgery when the team returns to Denver this week. It's obviously a big blow. Obviously, a former draft pick of the Broncos that they had there was on the practice squad last year. So tough sledding there. And, I mean, just you want to come out of any game healthy. And Denver, for the most part right now, is. And hopefully nothing pops up by the time they get back to Denver next week when we're out there watching practice. And they're expected to get Drake Greenlaw, Alex Singleton back next week, who are expected to be a little bit more full go. So that's an exciting development here, obviously, as time wears on here. But I'd say maybe let's talk about some other aspects here of this defense. Just a couple of standouts here. I mean, AP, the one thing I'll say is one guy who stood out to me on special teams is always J.L. Skinner, having an impact, whether it be on kickoff, whether it be on punt. He's going downfield. He's making tackles. And on defense here this evening, he had a nice play where he stuck one of the 49ers running backs, forced a fumble. It was on Amir Abdullah, I believe. And then it was recovered by the Broncos defense. So once again, JL Skinner making a case for himself here as the Broncos have extensive depth at the safety position. He was one guy that stood out, even though he didn't get those primary reps. Behind Brandon Jones, Talanoa Hufanga, it was PJ Locke and Devin Key getting those first reps after those starters went off the field here for Denver. So JL, in the limited amount of snaps that he got, made the most of those opportunities. He's someone I wanted to highlight.
I think another guy that had a good bounce back after kind of a rough start there on the first drive is Jaquan McMillan. Got beat for a pass there early, but then you saw him make some, really solid plays as the game went along. I thought it was a nice bounce back performance from Jaquan, a guy who's going to make this team, but I think there's a lot of questions about what his role might be after they drafted a guy like Jahdae Barron. And of course, they've got Riley Moss on the other side.
Yeah, and there's going to be competition between those guys. It's going to be ongoing. I thought, J-Mac responded well. I mean, that was a beautiful throw by Mac Jones over the top, high to the outside, with him having inside leverage, being able to trail underneath. That was just a great play. And obviously that wide receiver there in San Francisco, the rookie's got some speed to him, and they're really excited about what he's going to be able to bring to the table there in San Francisco. But, for him to bounce back, get the interception, one thing I like about J-Mac, he always plays with the chip on his shoulder. If he gives up a play, he has a short memory. He goes out there and he makes a play, getting the interception, giving the Broncos offense the ball back. That's always what you want to see from a guy to be able to bounce back. And then I liked what we saw from Jahdae Barron as well, working up, coming up and sticking dudes in the run in terms of the tackling department. I had a bold prediction earlier from Mile High Sports in my article earlier before the game. And three of them, I had three bold predictions for the rookies. Two of them came to fruition. One of them being was Jahdae was going to blitz from the nickel spot and get a sack. That one did not register, but I did have RJ Harvey having at least 4 carries that went for over 20 or more yards in this game. And then Pat Bryant having at least 2 catches that were going to be 10+ yards overall. Those two things came to fruition. The other one's going to, play out there, but Jahdae gives them flexibility. And I think when they go to the dime package, you have both these guys covering in the slot. I like the Broncos' chances with that. I thought it was a really good showing from the secondary, from the Broncos DBs that they had in the game here, obviously on this evening. And then Joshua Pickett getting an interception in this game as well. Love to be able to see that for this team, especially bouncing back from, some of the shots the 49ers threw at them during Thursday's joint practice.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, I think it's hard to put a ton of stock into a preseason game, but I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head of how they responded as the game went along as well. And, Jahdae Barron in particular being a rookie, always interested to see how he plays. You mentioned Pat Bryant. He was second in the team with receiving yards this evening, I should say. The 2 catches for the 21 yards, which you alluded to. But you want to talk about something that I can put some stock into and something that I do think I can take away in a meaningful way from a preseason game, just because I've seen this guy at Broncos camp, had the opportunity to interact with them. Trent Sherfield today, man, 3 receptions, 73 yards, including a beautiful touchdown reception. I mean, I understand everyone's excited about J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey and Evan Engram and Jahdae Barron, right? Those are the sexy names. But Trent Sherfield might be the unsung signing, the unsung addition for the Denver Broncos this offseason. I mean, he can do it on the field, but also as a mentor to guys like Pat Bryant. I mean, he's the total package as a veteran for the Broncos, man.
Yeah, he's had a really good training camp, and obviously that carried over into the preseason game. Not only, he was brought in initially to be a special teams contributor, I think he's exceeded the expectations in the receiving department because all throughout training camp, he's had sticky hands. He's been a really good route runner. He's been a reliable outlet option, not only for Bo Nix, but Jarrett Stidham and Sam Ellinger. He's caught passes from all those guys throughout camp and then just goes out and has a really great showing here. I mean, that was a tough catch that he made too. A beautiful throw by Stidham, but man, the 2-toe tap, that's a hard play to make right there. And he got both feet in perfectly. He just continues to be a reliable option, whether it be on third down, a good blocker when it comes to the run game as well. And I even thought too, there was one pass he caught coming out of the second half. It was an underneath crossing pattern. Pat Bryant, the rookie, did a great job getting in front of a defender, sticking his hands up in the air, and then blocking with his hip to free Sherfield up the sideline. I love what I'm seeing from this wide receiver room. There's a lot of depth to this group right now, and you want to be able to keep stacking that. And obviously, I think that wide receiver room is set with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant. I think Trent Sherfield will round out that 6th spot. I think they carry 6 onto the 53, and I think those are the guys that are going to make it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you as well. And I mean, but as we kind of wind it down here on your Locked On Broncos postcast, appreciate y'all in Broncos country for tapping in with us. I mean, talked a little bit about the defense, talked about the offense. 4 turnovers though, man. I mean, and I understand it's preseason, third string, second string quarterbacks, receivers, all that kind of stuff. But the Broncos defense, even without their top guys in there past the first quarter, I mean, 4 turnovers is 4 turnovers. That's something to read into as well.
Yeah, you love to see the contributions too. It's Savion Jones, recovering a fumble. You get Q Robinson, your rookie outside linebacker who's blowing up screenplays. Jahdae Barron's going up and making tackles, getting stops for minimal to no gain there. And just everybody's contributing, flying around, creating pressure. Karene Reed getting an interception as the undrafted rookie free agent linebacker. I thought he's had a fantastic under-the-radar training camp here at a position where I think everyone in Broncos country is a little concerned about the depth there, but man, he's playing really well at this point. Lavelle Bailey's had a great offseason. I thought Justin Sternot and his action that he had, I thought he did pretty well sticking the run against the 49ers, getting involved there early on. We talked about the safety depth already. The corner depth is pretty good right now, and it's just about getting these guys in the mix in that pass rush department. And Chris Abrams-Drain, let's talk about a guy who, had a couple of plays, one of the biggest ones of the night that didn't count because of a penalty on Inyoma Uwazurike. Chris Abrams-Drain came up big in the passing game defensively for the Broncos, had a couple of pass breakups, had an interception and got wiped off the board. But, man, really liking what we're seeing from the second-year cornerback out of Mizzou, and you just want to see these guys continue to build that confidence. He's going to have an important role as a gunner and as a jammer on special teams. But, man, if the Broncos need help at cornerback on the outside, I think they're very confident what Abrams-Drain is going to bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I'm with you as well. I think you saw a lot of the different depth pieces on display tonight for the Denver Broncos, and ultimately a little bit of an ugly start, but they score 30 unanswered points to take care of business against the San Francisco 49ers here this evening, 30-9. Cody, before we get out of here, any closing thoughts, anything else you want to get off the chest before we move forward to week 2 of the preseason?
Hey, Broncos country, it's the preseason. Have fun with it. Enjoy the passion, but don't get all crazy with the overreactions. It's the preseason, and we know that, hey, the Broncos, what was it? Or actually, no, let's go back. The Detroit Lions, the year they went 0-16, they went 4-0 in the preseason. It doesn't matter in your win or loss column. You want to see consistent growth, and surely for the Broncos offense, there's a lot of growth to be had from the starters. Will they do that this week against Arizona? That's our hope. That's what we're going to look for. Thanks for rocking with us. Sarah Bettinger and myself, we're going to be coming up here shortly for our Locked On Broncos post-game report as well.
It's going to be a good time. He's Cody Roark. I'm Aniello Piro. We have Locked On Broncos POSTCAST in addition to all the additional Locked On Broncos podcast content with Cody and Sarah. Looking forward to an awesome season here. And nice to get football back on the mind as the Denver Broncos take care of business today. 30-9 in their first preseason game with a win over the San Francisco 49ers. He's Cody Roark. I'm Aniello Piro. Good win for the Broncos. We'll talk to you guys next week.